Hello, this is Frank Falvey with Frank Presents, and today I have a very particular honor of having State Senator Karen Spilka with us, our representative for Franklin and Medway, Jeff Roy, who is a former 10-year member of the Franklin School Committee and chair of the Franklin School Committee for a number of years, and a special guest, the Commissioner of Education, Commissioner Mitchell Chester.
Correct.
Did I get that right?
No, glad to be here. Glad to be here. Yeah.
Please, a special welcome in coming to Franklin for this interview. I guess I would like to open the question or what is the role of the Department of Education in Massachusetts?
Sure. Well, first of all, it's a pleasure being here in Franklin, and I'm looking forward to visiting some schools a little later this morning with Representative Roy. The State Education Agency and the Commissioner's role has a couple of facets. One is to carry out the laws of the land. We have requirements. Education is a state requirement. It's part of our Constitution that we make sure that all of the youth of the Commonwealth have a strong education, and it's the State Education Agency and the Commissioner's responsibility to make sure that that happens, to set standards for learning, goals for achievement, to make sure that the laws of the land are carried out, that students are well served, that parents have rights and that those rights are followed through, and to make sure that local school districts, which ultimately have the responsibility for running the day-to-day programs and making sure that there are strong elementary and secondary school programs, have the kind of support and guidance that they need to be able to implement a strong program for their students. So state plays that role in terms of leadership, in terms of setting standards, in terms of following through on the laws of the land, both federal and state laws, but then ultimately supporting the efforts of local school officials, because that's where the action is. That's where the education is delivered.
Jeff, from being in Franklin and the chair of the school committee, what is your assessment of education, particularly in Franklin, or as it relates to the commissioner's office?
Well, it's nice to be in Massachusetts, first of all, because Massachusetts has been performing #1 in the nation for a number of years, and it's followed on the heels of ed reform, which began in 1993 with a Supreme Judicial Court case which recognized that our Constitution placed a right in children to get an education and dictated just what quality education entails. And I think the relationship between school committees and the Department of Education has grown since ed reform in 1993, and we rely on one another to deliver that constitutional right to our kids. And I'm just pleased that we are at the top, and not only are we at the top, we continue to look at ways to improve, to become even better and become tops in the world.
Karen, you always have had a special interest in special education, and there are places like Evergreen that teach severely handicapped children up to age 23, I think it is, to the highest they can learn. Is that the best setting, or should we move that program into the physical buildings of schools?
Well, I think I just want to first of all thank you for having us and thank the Commissioner for coming out here, and it's always a pleasure to be with Jeff as well. He's a great partner in the legislature. I was also the chair of my hometown school committee in Ashland, and that was my springboard to run for the state rep position back in 2001, 2002 to change the education funding formula to help particularly the greater 495 Metro West communities, and that was what motivated me to run for state rep. We were able to make some of those changes later on. We worked and created a coalition. So it took several years. So in 2006, we did make some changes to the education funding formula to help our communities. And we have continuously invested in education, not only regular education, but as you've noted, special education, which I've led the charge in the Senate to fully fund the special education circuit breaker and transportation and other areas of special education to help us become #1 in the nation in education, which helps our kids now, but also helps them in the future to get good jobs that are here in Massachusetts. So we should be very proud, and we've continued to invest even during the recession. I believe that for kids that need the special education component of our education, we have the obligation to do everything we can to keep them as much as possible in the schools, to be as inclusive as possible. And I think that schools work, I know Franklin does, and the surrounding communities work very hard to keep our kids in the schools to get the services that they need. And that's part of the role that the school officials work with the Department of Early and Secondary Education and the commissioner and his staff to make sure that we are servicing all of our children, because everybody benefits when all of our kids are together. There are certain times, though, however, where the best setting is in an out-of-district placement that needs to, and that is worked out among the school officials, the parents, and others to make sure and to work towards the best placement for their child so that they could reach the most potential, be as productive and reach the most potential.
Commissioner, I understand that there's a new program coming out. Is it called Common Core? Is that the correct title, or
Yeah,
what is the title?
right. So the Common Core effort is actually not new at this point. It's been out for a good 4 years now, going back to 2010.
Could you tell us
Sure.
what the essence
Sure.
of that program is?
Sure. The Common Core is the name of an effort that about 45 states, including Massachusetts, participated in to say, what does it mean to be literate in the United States in the 21st century, to read and write, and what does it mean to be strong in mathematics? Because it can't be hugely different to be literate in Massachusetts. The demands of the world after high school, the colleges and employers, the demands for literacy skills can't be hugely different for a student in Massachusetts than they are for a student in Maryland, than they are for a student in Florida. We live in a world where increasingly your economic opportunity is not limited by political boundaries, whether you live in state A versus state B, or even international political boundaries. So it was an effort to define what the literacy threshold and the mathematics threshold are for being ready for opportunities after high school. In Massachusetts, we took the information from the Common Core that was developed through those 45 states, we incorporated it in our own standards. We call these standards, we call them curriculum frameworks. We have this jargon in our field that we use, but they're basically learning goals. So that by the end of high school, what should a student know and be able to do in terms of reading and writing and mathematics if they're going to have a shot at being ready for college, or what employers are expecting, and for full citizenship. We incorporated those into a revision to our Massachusetts standards in 2010. So we're now actually in the 4th year of implementing those standards. Our school districts have been aligning their curriculum. And I want to draw a distinction between standards, sort of learning goals, and curriculum. Curriculum is about the day-to-day course of study that students experience. It's about what textbooks, what books do you read? It's about what approach, what learning styles, what instructional styles does a district incorporate in their course of study. Those are all local decisions. The state does not dictate those. The state sets standards for what it means to be a proficient reader or a strong mathematics.
You mentioned math. What other areas?
Well, so we have these standards in a range of areas. The areas that we revised in 2010 were reading, writing, and math, English language arts and math. We also have standards in the social studies, including history, including economics, civics education. We have standards in the sciences. And we're the only state, by the way, and these are our standards.
But these aren't the Common Core standards.
These are not the Common
Right.
Core standards. Common Core standards were only in English language arts and mathematics. So these other standards are completely homegrown here. And I just want to point out that in Massachusetts, we are the only state that incorporates in our science standards technology and engineering, which we think is a real strength of the Massachusetts curriculum.
How much of these standards are coming from the federal government and are coming as a requirement?
No standards are coming from the federal government. Everything that I just described, including that 45 state effort, was completely led by states. Massachusetts educators, some of my own staff, as well as teachers and administrators from throughout the Commonwealth participated in the development of those, of our new curriculum frameworks which incorporate these Common Core standards.
You know, it might be helpful, because I know that we had a meeting just about 2 weeks ago to talk about revisions to the social science standards, and it was fascinating to learn who the players are at the Department of Education and who they reach out to develop these standards, and I would love to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate that. We involve educators from throughout the Commonwealth when we develop new standards, new what we call curriculum frameworks, these learning goals. So we convene teams of teachers representing elementary grades, representing secondary grades. We include higher ed faculty when we develop these standards. So we rely a lot on the input of our own educators in Massachusetts in the development of our curriculum standards and frameworks.
What have you found, Karen, that in the development of this core curriculum? There's a test, I believe, that is going to be implemented.
Well, I know that they are trying out one type of test that is commonly referred to as the PARCC, P-A-R-C-C, PARCC test.
Is that because of our accent in New England of pocket card?
Right, the PARCC test. It's referred to as the PARCC test. I know, but we went through this in the 90s when the department, when we changed the curriculum and the frameworks, developed it and grew and chose MCAS as the test, and that was referred to. So kids went through school for the almost 2 decades now taking MCAS tests. And that was controversial. People don't remember, but I do. My kids were in school. It was controversial when they were implemented. People didn't want the tests. They did not want that kind of test. They wanted other types of assessments. So this always raises controversy to some extent. But so MCAS tests have been given. Now with some revision of the curriculum frameworks, from what I've heard, is that there's the desire to change the types of tests so that it would capture and actually test the kids on a little different way of learning, more conceptual, more, thinking things, the skills that kids will need when they go to either college or go on into their career. To make sure that they have success in college and their career. So that the PARCC test is one type of test. I assume there's other tests that the state could have chosen, and the department has the authority to choose the test ultimately. So they are, from what I hear, testing that test out now.
Commissioner, you mentioned mathematics and the international requirement, but I would point out that foreign language, particularly everyday foreign language, is probably more important than mathematics. And I would argue that in the first and second grade is the place to be teaching this. So if you're using an international argument for math, isn't putting money and priority into early education of language really even more important than math?
So I wouldn't make it an either or proposition. I think both are equally important. I think being multilingual, having facility in multiple languages is a tremendous asset and a tremendous skill. So I'm very supportive of that, but I wouldn't argue that that's more important than mathematics.
Well, where's the money though? Why isn't the money coming to support that like the money is coming to support English or math?
Well, so I'd like to punctuate a point that Senator Spilka made. I think the leadership in this state, including our legislature, and you have two outstanding legislators here in Senator Spilka and Representative Roy, through a very difficult economic downturn, have walked the talk of supporting K-12 education at a time when this state, like every other state in the nation, like every nation in the world, through a tremendous international economic downturn, made K-12 education a priority. And we have supported K-12 education. The decisions on the curriculum are made locally. We flow state dollars to local communities for their schools, but we don't tell them you have to teach this subject but not that subject. Those are decisions that are made locally. But I absolutely agree with you. I think that having a broad educational program that includes languages, includes the social studies, includes the arts, includes a range of subjects is important for all of our students.
Frank, we dealt with those types of decisions on a regular basis. In the 10 years being on the school committee, we faced issues about, I know at one point we had to eliminate elementary Spanish. It was a heart-wrenching decision, and it's something that we'd love to see come back in the local school district, but it's difficult to do it on a piecemeal basis. I think by the end of the program, kids were getting maybe 30 minutes a week. It's a goal, it's a laudable goal, and it's something I think Franklin should work to achieve, but that's a decision that lies in the hands of the local school community, and I know the folks on the school committee, and I know the superintendent is wedded to the idea that foreign language is important to improvement in the school system, and I know they're working at it, and it is our hope that as this economy begins to rebound, as people begin to get back to work and money becomes available, we can shift more dollars to the local communities so they can support these types of programs.
I guess my concern is starting at the federal level, there is so much money for education. And a lot of that seems to go maybe to create Common Core programs or other types of programs and regulations. How much percentage maybe of that money of the federal budget for education actually ends up in the local classroom?
Before you go to that question, I just want to make one point about the development of the curriculum, because the dollars flowing in from the federal government. The thing that fascinated me is, as I asked the commissioner the other day, how much do you pay the teachers and the higher ed folks to come in and develop and work on this curriculum and sit at these meetings? They don't get paid anything. It's all volunteer work that these folks do to come together to improve education, and I think that should be said. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, that's a great point, because we have incredibly dedicated educators, and to the representative's point, when we do our curriculum development work, support districts in that, develop our standards and so forth, for the most part, teachers are volunteering their time, teachers and administrators and higher ed faculty. When you look at the funding sources for education, it turns out that the federal dollars to a local budget are a relatively small proportion of the total spending on education's maybe probably shy of 10% of
And
all
they're
that's spent.
decreasing every year.
And it's been decreasing. The bulk of the dollars come either from state or local revenue sources, taxes. The federal dollars in Massachusetts, probably north of $500 million a year goes into classrooms of federal dollars. That doesn't include school lunch programs, which are strongly subsidized by federal dollars. But in terms of actual driving down to classroom level, it'd be north of $500 million a year, and two of the largest grants that almost every district in the state shares in. One is referred to as Title I, Education for Disadvantaged Students. The other are special ed funds that come from the federal government.
High schools, particularly like in Franklin or Dover or Wellesley, like to tout how many of their graduating seniors go on to college. But to me, it seems like the important statistic is, in 4 or 5 years, how many graduate from college. Does your office make any attempt to ask that information to be collected, or do you feel that's important to know?
You've had a great topic there, and we do feel it's important to know. And we have a tool on our website that folks can access. It's called the DART, D-A-R-T tool, and right on our homepage you can click on that. And one of the filters, one of the reports you can look at is you can look at success after high school for any community. And we look at graduation rates. We look at 4-year and 5-year graduation rates, because some students take 5 years, but they are successful in graduating. But then we also look at matriculation in higher ed. We look at whether or not when students matriculate, do they need remedial courses. That's a huge warning sign, because students who end up being placed in remedial, non-credit bearing courses have a greatly reduced probability of ever making it through to a 2 or a 4-year degree. But we also track 2-year and 4-year degrees, and a lot of communities will be surprised at the rate at which students are graduating from high school, showing up on our public campuses, and then needing remediation. Statewide, it's more than 1/3 of our students, and a lot of folks are surprised at that. And to the park test that the senator mentioned earlier, one of our hopes with that assessment is that parents, students, and teachers will get better information as students leave middle school, go into high school, and progress through the grades as to whether or not they're on track for being ready for college level work. Right now, our 10th grade MCAS is not doing a good job of signaling whether or not a student is ready for the expectations after high school.
Let me jump, because we're running out of time, to a senior question. And BU, Dean, I think state colleges offer programs for senior adults at really reduced rates. But I don't see any support from particularly maybe your office as promoting that, as publicizing that as part of the education.
Well, you're the first person who's pointed that out to me, so I'll be happy to look into that. I would say that we do, through my agency, we do run adult basic education courses. These are aimed at adults who want to upgrade their skills, typically adults who don't have a high school diploma yet. And so we do run a range of programs through funding that the legislature provides, as well as some federal funds. And we have thousands of adults throughout the Commonwealth who are upgrading their skills, pursuing a high school diploma, getting advanced job training.
Yeah, but I'm talking about college.
No, I hear you. I hear you. Yeah.
Because we're winding up and closing down, is there something that you would like to express on a topic that we haven't covered?
Yeah, I would pick up on something Representative Roy said. A lot of people don't know how well we're doing in Massachusetts. Our performance is second to none among the 50 states. And our teachers and administrators are the ones who deserve the credit for that. And I think that gets lost quite often. I'll be the last one to be complacent about where we are. We still have too many young people who aren't getting an education that's preparing them for the world after high school, and we're working on that.
Are drugs part of that problem?
drugs are clearly an issue in our society today. They're clearly an issue. But you know what? Year after year, our schools deliver better and better results for kids. They're getting the job done and improving constantly. I'm very proud of the education that's provided to students in Massachusetts.
Karen, is there anything you'd like to add?
I think you've done a great job, and I do just want to echo what the commissioner has said. I think that we've been doing a great job. We cannot rest on our laurels, though. The times change, the global economy changes, let alone, you know, here in Massachusetts as well. We need to ensure that we are preparing our kids for the jobs that are there now, whether they be in the science, technology, engineering, math, or other areas. We need to be doing right by our kids and giving them the best education possible.
Jeff, let me give you the last word.
Well, I can tell you that I'm truly excited to be joining the legislature at this particular time, because the fact is that we're not sitting on our laurels, as Senator Spilka said, that we see areas where we need to improve, and we're not accepting, we're not complacent with being number one in the nation. We still want to lead the way and be number one in the world, and that to me is a tremendous goal. It's a tremendous opportunity for our school children, and it's a tremendous opportunity for our community and our state, and I'm excited to be a part of the team that's going to make that happen.
Commissioner, I'd like to, I'm thrilled that you're here, and I hope that your office or you have a chance to come back to Franklin, talk again, meet some of the people. But if people want to reach you or your office, how can they best do that?
Yeah, the best place is to go to our website. You can link in through our website. And I'm going to have to ask somebody for the address on it on that website, but it's www something.
Here we come.
Frank.
Here we go.
Here we go.
It is www at DOE, Department of Education, DOE.mass.edu.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Karen.
much, Frank.
And I hope to see you all again at various times. And so you're off to see some buildings, including how they're coming on the new high school.
Should be very exciting.
It should be. Have a great day, and it looks like it will be a nice warm one for you.
Okay.
So this is Frank Falvey with Frank Presents, thanking you for tuning in, and until we see you again, God bless you.
This program was made possible by your Franklin friends and neighbors, good folks just like you. Thanks for supporting Franklin TV. And thanks for watching.